other philosophy, is there really a progress to be made in philosophy?
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you think about, you know, Kierkegaard, totally ridiculous human, not getting anywhere, right? What a wild person. How many, did he have like 7 pseudonyms that he wrote under? 19, come on. And just writing just crazy books, crazy novels, you know, and not really totally getting somewhere, and completely religiously baffling. Yeah, and I think that maybe philosophy, and the way it's done now, which would be like by Carolyn Finney, who wrote a great book called Black Faces and White Spaces, about the ways that, you know, like American naturalism is represented by like John Muir or Thoreau, like this white man with a beard out in the woods, gaunt, muttering, pocket full of raisins. Yeah, and just, but writers that are thinking about how do we use the natural world for our, you know, to understand our existence, like the context of the natural world as our context. And in that, thinking about them working in philosophy, the maybe lability of the questions that they ask speaks that, you know, that they are just doing the parkour. They're just seeing if they can jump to that building. And I don't think that anybody, I mean, maybe Marx is not a great example because some action did come from that writing. But yeah, for the most part, I think thinking is just play.
And so maybe when, does this somehow relate to kind of the 3 horrors of the title? You know, like when we, you know, if as each of these disciplines start to figure out some way to divide themselves up into the winners and the losers, right? Is that the source of the horror, as we, you know, are looking for those epiphanies, or looking for being able to be on the winning team or make that score, and the discipline gets moved away from free play? What's the relationship to the horror?
So economic horror is for this piece. I can't talk too generally. I'm just not that great at it. I'm sorry. For this piece, the economic aspects of it, as I was thinking about it while making it, and hopefully when you read through the pieces and through the Viewmasters, a lot of things will be changed for you. But primarily the economic impact of climate imbalance is people that are impoverished will be the first people to be wiped out. That, you know, economy has absolutely everything to do with the decline of our natural world in a very real and actual way. But also thinking about in terms of, for me, I'm very obsessed with thinking about class issues. It's not a very popular sensitivity to have in this day and age, but I live in a very impoverished neighborhood. I grew up in a very impoverished way, and I teach at this very wealthy private school, and I'm surrounded by people that come from a space that feels quite different to me. Sorry, it's all right. Like a sort of middle class space, and economy and class is in the forefront of my awareness. I often feel like I'm passing in spaces of the art world, which is incredibly wealthy. You know, and it's people that have a certain space. And so for me, thinking about the materials of art, thinking about the reception of art and the sale of art is also an element of the economy. And trying to play a game between a sort of framed, elegant photograph and then these throwaway paper, Walgreens, disposable drugstore photographs is that sort of playing that kind of balance. And then certainly a ton of the writing, particularly in the vending machine essay and in the viewfinders, is about people who use metaphors, or we all use metaphor as a way to understand our environment. And one of the main metaphors that economists use in their writing are metaphors of nature. You know, things are blooming, things are, you know, like there's constant recitation of the natural world as an understanding of the economics world.
Bull market, bear market.
Bull market, bear market is huge, yeah, and they're actually, that's one of the sentences, just that bull market, I think it's bear market, bull market. Yeah, it's over and over again. We use our context, and money is our context as well, certainly. But we're just such a strange species in that we've, in a lot of ways, tried to eradicate the natural world or our like our damage from it. But then what we rebuilt it with is all metaphors from the natural world. So it's really thinking about that. So that's the economic, those three spaces. The way that the language of economy, of nature is used in the economic space. The way that actual nature is impacted by one's economic space in the world, in America, but all across the world. And then just like, what does it mean for me to be working with kind of disposable materials? Or, every time you buy a 25-cent sentence, I lose 3 cents because I had to order these beautiful balls from Canada for so it actually comes up to 27 cents. So that like this humor of selling is part of the economics, and and then emotional. That is, I think we all we all know what the emotional horror is, and existential horror. Do we? Should I teach
anybody?
About that? Yeah, some of us.
Anybody?
And then the existential horror is because it all is, again, falling, hopefully, for me, what I'm thinking about through this whole thing, and really all of my work is, the question of, just a philosophical platform of existentialism. What, why, how are we here? Is still endlessly fascinating to me, and enjoy it, like pleasurable. It's pleasurable for me to think about the ways that the way that I think about my being here, the way it's entwined with the natural world, and the way that all of these other writers and thinkers think about the natural world.
And and so much of that thinking and that writing has been about trying to open up conversation with others, and really sort of talking about the artistic enterprise as an antidote for aloneness, and a counteractive for that, and really trying to recenter ourselves in a world that is literally built on conversations with each other.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. But does that And do you think that art is there that space for? It's sometimes such a kind of a mute offering. Like, do we ever, sometimes you go to a movie and you yell, like, don't go in there! But usually you're a passive viewer, or you read a novel, you're in bed, your cat's on your head, you're reading. You don't get to, tell the person about the impact. I guess then you just make more art, and that is the response to art.
Well, I think, and certainly the kind of, like in the opera piece that you had done, like getting to sort of bring a lot of collaborators together, and then sort of letting them loose, and they start to behave in maybe ways that are kind of not anticipated, sort of not, this is not what I was bargaining for here. But that, the conversation is kind of loose and wild in a way that maybe the art in the art market is kind of almost not permitted to be.
Yeah.
And it seems like maybe that's again like another one of the things that you're going for here in developing a body of work that allows for conversation, that sometimes the conversation is going to break out of the bounds of what's expected and what's anticipated.
Yeah. Which is always such a heartbreak. No, it's not. I'm kidding. But we're sort of making a joke because of this opera that I did for Melissa Webb's installation at the Lovely Lane Church, Proficiencies for Living in Ruins, that did become a little bit chaotic as a performance. Yeah, and I was a little bit not that happy about that.
I absolutely loved it.
Yeah.
Every minute of it.
I think it's one of the something that happens is that
and so there's really when we talk about the horror, the horror of the show, like this is not a situation that is to be remedied, is it? This is just part of this sort of being in nature and yet misunderstanding it all the time.
Yeah.
And using nature as a metaphor for our own existence, and yet we keep making these mistakes again. We keep mistaking economics for reality.
Yeah, that's a nice phrase. One thing that may or may not speak to that is this piece is interesting to me. So each of these pieces, the way that the writing that is about the photograph, so that piece says, can somebody read it? The melancholy that is a result of suggested by reflection. Okay, so that is a photograph that I'm really obsessed with. So each of the photographs, this one has these dolphins on a hot air balloon, a piece of metal as wall decoration. That is a sculpture of a bird woman, and that is Snoopy, a Snoopy Sandman. So they're like this kind of bastardization of the natural world, or representation, or human representation of something from the natural world. And that piece is and so then all of the writing that goes with that image on all of the hand lettered pieces and the larger space, the larger plastic, is about that image, about the ideas for that. So for that one, what I thought that was this Persian, this early Persian castle, like a body of water, a pool in this Persian castle, and I was reading a lot about the mannered gardens of early Persian. It was really a very early bit of engineering, the first sort of enclosing of water spaces. And so all of the writing on that is about this sort of arrogance and macho impulse of owning water, holding water. Water is so incredibly wily, and like you just can't get it. And when people first began, like the early Italian fountains, and even earlier than that, the Greeks building aqueducts to practice sea warfaring and then draining those spaces, really early amazing engineering feats to control water, which is this massive, unholdable body. It just felt so macho to me, and so like impressive and beautiful. Who doesn't want a gorgeous swimming pool in the bottom of their castle? But sad and like ownership. So I was writing a lot about early engineering, a lot about water as a reflective space, the sort of myth of Narcissus, totally, but also the beauty and solace in young, water as a endless metaphor for conscious. But then so this is to get back to your question. So then in New York, somebody told me that actually that is not, that what that is an exact recreation that Hearst Castle, remember Patty Hearst, and the family was newspaper magnates? They had built a recreation of this early Persian castle space. And so it's in either upstate New York or California. I haven't quite figured that out. But it's a recreation of that space. And actually, and I wouldn't have known that except in dialogue. But actually, for me, it was really exciting because the fact that it was a simulacrum of this space and sort of triple macho ownership about ownership was really exciting and folded into all of the space of the conversation in a really exciting way.